Previously on Dexter.
I'm relieved they brought the story of Dexter Morgan to a definitive end. Those are like the Dexter original sins. Dexter original sins. Dexter original sins.
You know, Quasimodo predicted all this.
We're living in a very different Dexter world now than we were 4 years ago. In the wake of New Blood, the Dexter universe was done. Or at least, if it continued through spin-offs, would do so without Michael C. Hall's Dexter. It would also go down in history as not only a show with one of the worst finales ever, but a show with two of the worst finales ever. But now we're in a brave new world. Dexter back, again, revealed to have survived that gunshot in the hands of his son in the opening scene of Original Sin. And he's got a sequel series in the works titled Dexter Resurrection. In 2021, Dexter was back for one last big send-off. 4 years later, Dexter isn't back for one last big send-off. He's back to stay.
This is forever. This is what we do now. This is who we are.
Before diving into the prequel proper, let's address the impact of Dexter surviving the events of New Blood right off the bat. I think one of the big questions is, do the first few minutes of Original Sin retroactively ruin Dexter New Blood? The thing about that question is, 1, wondering if something ruined New Blood is sort of like wondering if pissing in the porta-john will ruin the contents of the shit basin. And 2, that would imply the ending of New Blood was one of the things that series did well. If anything, I can see the argument that Original Sin's opening retroactively makes New Blood better. New Blood was released in an environment where it was supposed to be one last send-off to the character that rights the wrongs of the show's existing finale and gives the series a satisfying conclusion, which is why in my review of New Blood I expressed frustration that 9 of the 10 episodes wound up being by the numbers Dexter versus a season arc killer stuff, with a slap together episode where he gets caught and dies for the finale. But now the onus to be a satisfactory conclusion to the character is no longer on New Blood, and it can be enjoyed as an inessential romp with a talented actor turning in a great villain performance despite relatively flimsy writing, Dexter juggling an emotionally overwrought relationship of secrets and lies with the loved one, annoying side characters taking up too much screen time, and a shit ending. Which sums up pretty much every other season, even most of the good ones. I've noticed more and more, looking online or just reading comments on my old videos on the franchise, that may be what some people want from Dexter. Dexter is unique among drama shows in that it's the only one I've noticed that has a vocal minority of viewers who literally never want it to end. Like, I loved, say, Succession, and metaphorically I didn't want it to end because I was enjoying it. But I didn't literally want it to not end. I wanted the show to ultimately conclude for that cathartic final payoff. And knowing that payoff was coming made the entire experience all the more engaging. But there are people who want Dexter to be like the dramatic equivalent of The Simpsons. I got a comment just this week on my retrospective of the original series that read, "So glad you guys didn't write the show. A lot of people wanted him to be caught. LOL, if that happens, there's no more show." Hey, fair enough. Who would ever want to watch a show about a criminal mastermind where they get caught in the end? So, right off the bat, would I recommend Dexter Original Sin? If you're one of those people who wants to live in Never Never Land with Dexter forever, 100% yes, because Original Sin is most aptly described as more Dexter. I went in cold with no spoilers, didn't even know the basic premise other than that it was a prequel. So you can imagine my surprise when this wasn't a prequel in a whole different environment and with different relationship dynamics. We're back at Miami Metro with Masuka and Angel and LaGuerta, and 2 cannon fodder black guys who can be casualties, and 2 new authority figures who are the only possible suspects for who the season's killer could be. Yeah, even with elements that aren't already foregone conclusions because this is a prequel, the twists aren't terribly hard to predict.
Anyone sitting here?
You are the Ice Truck Killer. As far as performances, how does our new cast of old characters do? Patrick Gibson is great as Dexter, especially capturing the way Hall's person suit Dexter would bumble his way through social situations in the highlight years of the original series. And Michael C. Hall continuing to provide the internal monologue helps to sell the illusion that this is the same character. Christian Slater works as Dexter's father figure even if he doesn't seem anything like Harry from the original series, but that character has always been such a fucking mess that straying from his original characterization is acceptable, if not inevitable. Christian Slater, are you my new ghost daddy? Wait, no, you're my old ghost daddy. Minor spoilers for Mr. Robot. Minor, very significant spoilers. Similarly, Christina Milian turns in a solid, if different, performance as Maria LaGuerta, insofar as she is actually competent this time around. Maybe it will be explained in a later season of Original Sin where she sustains some sort of massive head trauma. James Martinez does well as a young Angel Batista, although I think Angel's hat is like a Mario Odyssey hat and anyone who wears it becomes Angel. Like, put the hat on me and I could play Angel. And Alex Shimizu nails the Masuka laugh, which I imagine was the central aspect of the audition process. The only actress that's a little wobbly is young Deb's actress, Molly Brown. But I feel that's less on the actress and more on the writing/character in general. Deb's foul-mouthed, emotionally overcharged character was divisive even at the best of times in the original series, and I feel like Jennifer Carpenter was very essential to tipping that character into being likable instead of grating. I know I'm not speaking for everyone with that, though. I know a lot of people did not feel she pulled it off, but yeah. Colorful strings of profanity and pouty emotional fits about Dad just aren't the same coming from someone else.
Who is she? And are you trying to fuck her or set her on fire?
You can't make a prequel without some baggage, especially when you're making a prequel like Dexter Original Sin, where the characters' past and even some events of this series have already been outright shown via flashback. There's also the issue that we know what's going to happen with all these characters, and worse than that, audiences on the whole didn't like what happened with all these characters. With Clyde Phillips, the showrunner of New Blood, as well as the first 4 original seasons, in charge, my question was, how much of foreshadowing Dexter's future is going to be core to the plot? How much is going to be alluded to but just in little winks and nods, and what is going to be blatantly not addressed? Sorry to all the Vogel fans out there, but no, she doesn't show up in the series or get alluded to in any way, even though she is supposed to be helping Harry with a code at this point in the timeline. I'm sure Vogel's absence is devastating news to about 8 people.
Hey, what happened in there?
We're celebrating because you weren't in there.
They do a little wink-wink line alluding to Camilla's inevitable suicide by key lime pie, but nothing regarding, say, Deb's death. And certainly nothing regarding how she's going to eventually want to fuck her brother.
We're family. I am gonna ream you out tomorrow, though.
So for everyone with me in the Scott Buck Hate Club, you will be amused to learn that Clyde Phillips doesn't mind retconning his successor's contributions to the canon. Although there is a nod to the infamous lumberjack stinger from Remember the Monsters, which I appreciate that the show indulged in.
Perfect. Guys in plaid make Sophia wet. Some kind of weird lumberjack fetish she has going on.
The most painfully heavy baggage brought to the prequel series is baggage the writers really didn't even need to pack in the first place. An interminable retelling of how Harry met Laura, Dexter and Brian's birth mother, whose chainsaw murder was the origin of their murderous tendencies. It's a flashback within a flashback that we've already seen before in the original series via flashback. And worst of all, it takes up quite a significant chunk of the runtime. It tries to be tense at times, it tries to delve into Harry having an affair and learning to care for Dexter. We've done all this before, I don't need to see it again. Should have flashed back to a storyline of Hector Estrada at the Home Depot, trying to decide if he wants to chop her up with a cheaper gas model or remain environmentally conscious and spring for electric. Used to be something new. The flashbacks do occasionally attempt to bring something to the table, revealing that Harry had a previous child who drowned in the pool, an event that further motivated him to try to save Dexter after Laura's death. And they reveal that Harry attempted to adopt Brian Moser as well, but had to relinquish him to the state because he was such a murderous terror. The few flashbacks showing evil toddler Brian are definitely up there alongside the Harrison Treadmill, Hello Whore, and the Doomsday Killer's mural in the unintentionally funny Dexter moments pantheon.
I hate you! I hate all of you!
There have been some notable changes to the show's style, in that it actually has a style again. Season 1 made Miami feel very colorful and lived in, only for later seasons to further and further resemble multi-camera sitcoms or soap operas. And New Blood came down with a bad case of Vaseline lens half the time. It's nice to see the series having fun and experimenting with the visual aspect of their visual medium again. The match cut from a bloody murder scene to a close-up of baby Brian Moser painting his mother's multicolored nails, wordlessly revealing that he is the other serial killer running around town, was especially slick. Dexter also now has intense visions of why the killers did what they did while investigating crime scenes, because apparently the writers forgot they were making a Dexter prequel and not a Will Graham prequel, although it is later somewhat justified when it's revealed that all of the kills were done by his brother, and he's seeing the motive because they're, like, connected via the Dark Passenger, and such and such. Not all visuals are winners, though. The third act occasionally comes down with not trusting the audience syndrome, particularly when it comes to Harry. It's certainly nowhere near as bad as the Ghost Harry explanations of the later seasons, but you know how actors can, like, convey emotions by making a face? It's sort of their thing. Well, I guess they didn't think Christian Slater could do that, or didn't think the audience would pick up on it if he did. So there are a few times they'll include some visual to explain the obvious thing that he's obviously thinking. He hears the news that Brian Moser's social worker was butchered with a chainsaw, and right when they say her name, the show flashes back to him meeting her and her saying her name. We've seen him interacting with her in flashbacks. Obviously he knows her, and obviously he suspects Brian is the killer. Just have him make a troubled face. Harry confronts Brian over the murders, but he's unable to pull the trigger. Because, in Harry's eyes, Brian is still just a kid. a kid he wasn't able to save. That's sort of been the theme this season, you know? Saving a child is penance for past sins. Original sins, if you will. Oh, but people might not pick up on that. They'll be like, why didn't Harry shoot Brian? Is he stupid? So let's have Brian literally morph into a child in Harry's eyes. In a quiet scene at the end of the season, Dexter contrasts himself with the season's main antagonist, Captain Spencer, saying Spencer was a monster that was made, while he is a monster that was born this way. Of course, Harry knows Dexter wasn't born that way, and he knows exactly what made Dexter that way. But to shield Dexter from the past, and from his brother, he lies and agrees. It's a very nice scene. Oh, but in case you missed that Harry was lying to Dexter because you're watching this show incredibly drunk, they immediately toss in a flashback to Harry rescuing Dexter from the blood-soaked shipping container to make sure you got it. This on-the-nose stuff even punctuates the season. Dexter's final line is that he needs his family, referring to Deb and Harry. But of course, there is the sinister double meaning that Brian Moser is coming eventually. In case you didn't pick up on the double meaning though, the camera cuts to Brian Moser watching from the patio of the bar they're in. Okay, I know I'm just totally nitpicking now, but you couldn't have done something more subtle, like the same brand of ice truck he uses in season 1 passes by the window. I don't know. It's like if instead of the final shot of the penguin being the bat signal, the final shot was Batman like right outside his window, standing on a gargoyle staring at him. Again, I'm nitpicking. I'm sorry. The series indulges in contemporary 80s and 90s hits for the main story and 70s hits for Harry flashbacks. Somewhat overindulging in the first few episodes, but otherwise, they're integrated fairly well. This in contrast to the original Dexter, which generally restricted its needle drops to old-timey standards that could be eerily juxtaposed with that season's killer. But enough about the presentation, let's jump into the actual plot. The pilot is admittedly pretty rushed, because it wants to blaze through a bunch of setup to get us to the status quo. Dexter is a killer who works at Miami Metro. It's doubly rushed because it details Dexter's first kill, which you've already seen in flashback, and the writers seem like they just want to get it over with so they can get to the new stuff. So in the span of a single episode, we have Dexter's miraculous survival following the end of New Blood, establishing his relationships with Harry and Deb and establishing the code, his father having a heart attack, his father being poisoned by his nurse, Dexter killing the nurse as his first kill, his father recovering, Dexter graduating college, and Dexter taking a job at Miami Metro.
Welcome to Miami Metro.
The 4 most terrifying words in the English language. From there, the show's momentum starts to pick up, despite the Harry flashbacks' continuous attempts to drag the whole season down. There's a child murderer on the loose who is targeting the children of high-ranking city officials, and the pressure is on to catch the guy since Chief Spencer's son is one of the captives. There's also a string of murders targeting seemingly disparate targets, revealed to be the first murderous efforts of Brian Moser, aka the Ice Truck Killer, doing his first few kills in tandem with his brother Dexter to get revenge on people who crossed him in the foster system. And between all that, Dexter does his kills of the week, and has misadventures with Deb's high school friends, employing his clever criminal mind to facilitate various pranks and schemes, and sparking up his first romantic relationship that is perpetually plagued by complications due to his double life and distant personality. The overarching child killer plot is kind of threadbare in the first half of the season, but with the tongue-in-cheek gradual exploration of Dexter's kill ritual since his earliest kills keep turning into shit shows, it's more of a, okay, you're setting the table. We'll see that plot point later in the third act sort of thing. It's ultimately revealed that the genial yet occasionally hot-headed chief is the kidnapper, attempting to get back at his ex-wife while framing the cartel for the child murders so he isn't only not a suspect, but also a pitied public victim. Once you find out he's the killer and he's acting like the case is driving him mad while he tries to find his son, it kept making me think of that I Think You Should Leave sketch where the hot dog car crashes through the window.
They could have killed someone.
Whose car is this?
Yeah, come on! Whoever did this, just confess. We promise we won't be mad.
Well, not the grandest scheme in thriller history. It's refreshing in Dexter to have something other than mob enforcer or Hollywood-style serial killer who gets perverse pleasure from killing in elaborate rituals, with Miguel as the only real comparable type of bad guy. The show did do a corrupt cop before, but it wasn't a season arc villain, just one of the more memorable one-off kills.
You gonna rape and kill me?
What is it with you and rape? No one's raping anyone.
Dexter's first arc villain only having a single kill and a few stray woundings under his belt jives with the learning the ropes angle of the series as a whole. The show plays it safe in the finale, but with Dexter's finale track record, that was probably the right call. A quick game of cat and mouse, fight to the death backdropped by a ticking clock death trap, then a final, almost thought the killer got away, but of course, Dexter nabs him at the last minute wrap-up. No pun intended. Some good schlocky fun. More schlocky, less fun, is Harry's confrontation with Brian Moser. Overall, I enjoyed Brian Moser throughout the season. I like that he was just running around in the background doing his own thing. But then he and Harry have this massive rooftop confrontation in the finale, and I thought, the writers are really playing with fire here. I was very nervous watching this scene. Is another Dexter finale about to fuck me very hard in the mouth? Fortunately, the show gets through it relatively unscathed, other than the unsubtle style choices I mentioned previously, and Brian's awkward word choice of the verb chainsawed to describe what happened to his mother. I would have gone with butchered or chopped up or something. That's just me. Harry bluffs Brian and tells him he raised Dexter to be normal, and Brian escapes captivity when Harry tries to take him in. It's typical prequel schlock. I'm the big iconic bad guy from the original. Ooh, look how scary I am. Anyways, bye. See you in 15 years. So that's Dexter Original Sin. I called it Original Sins, plural, the whole time I worked on this video, then realized it's just Original Sin and went back and fixed them all. Even though calling it Original Sins would have been great engagement bait with all the people in the comments correcting me. That's just how much I care about integrity. As I said before, if you're hungry for more Dexter, Original Sins will give you more Dexter, warts and all. And I think we can all admit, even at its highest highs, Dexter was a show with a few warts. At least this season doesn't end in utter disaster. They didn't kill off the driving force of the plot prematurely, or have a cop catch Dexter dead to rights only to cook up some shitty slap-together way for Dexter to get out of it. It's strong enough to make me want to watch the first season again, if only so I can get some juicy payoff to all the ice truck killer setup they did. See you with Original Sin Season 2, and Dexter Resurrection, and the Trinity Killer spinoff. Tonight's the night, and it's going to happen again.
Again and again! And again and again and again!
Thanks for watching. If you want to hear me talk more about Dexter, I have videos covering the original series, New Blood, and my 10 favorite and 5 least favorite episodes. And if you just want to hear me talk more in general, a lot more, I recently released a retrospective on Kevin Conroy's career voicing Batman. That video runs a cool 5 hours, so plenty of white noise for you to inevitably fall asleep to. See ya!